Hi, I'm Venus O'Hara and welcome to another video. Long time since I made a Q&A video, but I thought I would make one because I've been receiving so many questions from you about some very interesting topics. And if you write to me for my advice or my opinion on something, it's very important to remember that I am not a medical professional. I'm not a sexologist. I'm a sex toy reviewer and I've reviewed lots of toys. I know a lot about sex toys and orgasm through my own experience, and that's about it. Everything else is an opinion, but I don't answer questions that are, is my penis big or small? These are the measurements. I know it sounds crazy, but I do get a lot of messages like that, and I don't think they are kind of the typical unsolicited dick pics. They're kind of guys who are genuinely worried about their equipment, and I just don't feel that I'm qualified to give an answer, and I just don't want to go there, you know. Yeah, so anyway, let's dive into it, but that doesn't mean that I can still answer some very juicy questions for you. And I'm going to go to the comments I've received on this channel, and let's start with, yeah, that was the one. Someone was telling me the measurements, and I was like, is it okay? And I'm like, yeah, of course it's okay. I think everyone should embrace their penises and start to love them a little bit more. And it's always, I've made many videos about size, penis size, and if I think it's important or not. What I think is important is hardness, and to achieve that, I think it takes a healthy lifestyle to have more blood flowing where the blood needs to flow, and erection quality is way more important than centimeters, in my humble opinion. Anyone else has anything to add? Just add a comment below, but don't ask me questions about penises. Okay, so another question that was interesting that I received the other day was about performance anxiety. I'm not very experienced. I've been avoiding sex most of my life because of trauma. Oh no. I just recently started to open up to sexual experiences. There is something that I don't feel comfortable about. This is something I don't feel confident about, and I do not know how to please my partner without penetration. And then on the other hand, I don't really last that long. Okay, so what are my tips here? I'm going, oops. Well, if you have any trauma, I would strongly recommend seeking therapy for that. I think it's really important to speak about trauma with a professional. That's really, really, really important. It can be very beneficial. But even if you don't have trauma, I think performance anxiety is very, very, very common, actually, more than what we might think. And I think there's a lot of pressure to have sex a certain way. And I understand what you mean. I remember when I was first discovering sex and I wasn't very experienced, and I was with a guy who was much more experienced than I was. So I just did feel about, when it was in missionary, just lying back and not doing anything. That was okay. It was quite easy, actually. There's no performance anxiety there. But I did have this kind of feeling in the back of my mind that I should be a bit more active, just to not feel like a sack of potatoes, as they say. But I didn't feel very confident going on top. But then on my second relationship, I felt much more confident. I just thought, you don't know where I've been before, what I've done before. And it just kind of like, I felt a lot more confident. But I think that most sexual problems would be solved if you actually have sex with someone you know well and that you trust. Because if that's the case, then you're going to actually be able to communicate how you feel, and then maybe get some reassurance from that person, or guidance, or communication. I mean, communication is a massive cliche, but it's so true. And even if things, let's say, go wrong, if you come very quickly, when there is trust with someone and lots of familiarity, it can be like, oh, it can be something funny, and say, oh, I didn't know I turned you on that much. It could be something that's kind of like fun. You can say, you turned me on so much, I came in 2 seconds. You know what I mean? It can be something that can bring you together, rather than causing more performance anxiety. And of course, to actually get used to different sensations or do different things and please your partner, I think it's a good idea to actually ask for guidance. And if you're not comfortable with doing that with words, then maybe you could put their hand on your hand and get some manual guidance that way. Anyway, I hope this helps, and if anyone else has any tips, please leave a comment below. And what else? Oh, this is an interesting comment. It's not a question. On a video I made about orgasm. A real orgasm is generated by your mind. The Chinese have known this for centuries. When you're just not into it, nothing is going to really get you off. I would agree with that in most cases, but I remember when these kind of air suction, clitoral sucking toys first came out, and I had the most weird orgasm because I was used to vibration, and I really kind of isolated my clitoris and put this toy on top of my clitoris, and I just kind of, after a few moments, I could feel my legs just kind of like twitching, and I had this kind of orgasm, a physical orgasm that my mind just wasn't part of, and it was very weird because most of the time my mind is guiding me to orgasm. It's not so much about the toy, it's about my fantasy and all of the erotic triggers in my mind. And when I had that orgasm, it was like my body was doing something, but my head was just not with it at all. And it made me think, oh, this is maybe what guys feel when they have premature ejaculation. It's not the same pleasure. I think it's, I don't know, maybe you can enlighten me because I don't know what it's like to be a guy, but I just imagine that was what it would be like, even though your body's kind of having these kind of spasms, etc. It's not the same if your body's not into it. I don't know, what do you think? Yeah, so then someone else asks, more dating disaster stories, please. Well, I did make a video called A Disastrous Dating Story, and it wasn't disastrous in that it was funny. It wasn't funny at all. It was a guy who, a quick recap here, it was a guy who basically tried to get back to my place and got a little bit violent, and it was a bit scary. But I've had so many disastrous stories that maybe not as dangerous as that. But I remember just, doing online dating, not app dating, I've never done that, but just meeting someone that you don't know, and it's just so awkward. Oh. And then I think they say in the first 7 seconds you kind of know that it's not going to, there's nothing going to happen from it. And I can kind of talk about a lot of subjects, but then you're kind of really awkward. And it's thankfully these days, meeting someone, it's not about having dinner with them. That would be so awkward. It's a coffee and then goodbye. I can't imagine being part of this kind of hookup culture and then go around to someone's house that you've been chatting with on a dating app, and then feeling you're there to have sex but you don't really want to. Oh my god, that would be pretty awful. I don't know how you could. I mean, I don't know. That's something I've never done, and I'm not really interested in. Which brings me to my next point, which is very, very interesting. This was about this is a comment on a video I made called "Why Are Young People Having Less Sex?" And I was talking about how young people, let's say their first sexual relationships, these days it's less about relationships, it's more about hookups, and I think I personally think that's a little bit of a pity, because I'm glad that my first relationships happened, or my first sexual encounters happened within a cocoon of a relationship when I didn't have any sexual history or relationship history, so I kind of like gave my all to it, and the heartbreak was awful. But I'm kind of glad I lived that, because then you kind of like give less and less maybe as time goes by, and you have more and more relationships. Well, that's what it's like for me anyway. But anyway, someone wrote this comment which is really interesting. Venus, you are starting to sound old-fashioned. The present-day hookup culture is very consistent with the sexual revolution and feminism. It frees us of archaic courtship rituals and the interference of ridiculous traditional gender norms. A hookup is a relationship, like it or not, a form of dating in which we can go with our intuition and emotions rather than repressing our feelings as recommended by authority figures, ministers, parents, relatives, etc. If it's just a one-night stand, then so be it. With hookups, we don't need to follow ridiculous dating traditions like giving flowers, talking over the phone, meeting parents, etc. Out with the old and in with the new. That's a very interesting perspective, but not being kind of pro hookup. I mean, let me just read a quote here from this fantastic book, Becoming Cliterate. 55% of men versus 4% of women said they usually reach orgasm during first-time hookup sex. Yeah, so this is a book all about the clitoris and orgasms, and it just proves that, according to studies, hookup sex is not so satisfactory in general. And there are studies to prove it. It's not about being old-fashioned. And if you find that hookups are working for you, then I think that's absolutely fantastic. I made another video called Why I Envy Promiscuous People, because I think that if you do find the stimulation, or the kind of like, if you find that you found someone that you want to have sex with in a hookup situation, I think good on you, good for you. I think it's a fantastic thing. But I think sometimes with dating, we have this kind of preconceived idea of the other person, and now we have high expectations, and they're often not met. And yeah, but it's not about that I approve of the old system either of courtship. That's also got its real dangers. For example, in the past, people were going on dates, going to dances, all this courtship, and then not having sex, and then making lifelong commitments like marriage, without knowing what it's like to be intimate with that person. And I think I think intimacy is really, really, really important. So I don't think I think they're just two completely different things. I don't think this is today and that's the past. I just think I think both have got good and bad parts to them, to be honest. But I just think you should go with your intuition, and if hookups are working for you, then great. And if you like someone, it's when to have sex is kind of a big question. Should you wait a little bit, or should you just do it with the first opportunity? Because sometimes it's good to know if there is sexual compatibility there, but in other situations it's nice to kind of build up this kind of mystery and flirtations, and just kind of like how it explodes one day. For me personally, I prefer to have a big active social life, know lots of people, and then organically any potential sex partners will arise in my circles, and then as you get to know someone, the flirting can kind of get big, more and more intense, and then one day it becomes very obvious that something's going to happen. And that's my preferred style of seduction. So when there is that first time encounter, I'm not part of the 4%. I'm part of I am part of the 4%. I'm definitely having orgasms, because there's a lot happening there in my head already. That's my personal preference, but I understand, and that not everyone is like that. And I do think Tinder and those types of apps do serve a purpose. I think they should be used with caution. And I did make a video called A Disastrous Dating Story. And I do think it's not being prudish or old-fashioned, but I do think it's important to know who you're sleeping with, and to tell someone that you trust where you are. I think that's very, very, very important. Okay. Let's see. Someone asked me, have you managed to manifest any of your desires with sex magic? Let me just do a like on that comment. Absolutely. I started doing or practicing sex magic about 3.5 years ago, and I've manifested many things, but of course I didn't just like imagine them and masturbate. I did take action as well. So some of the things I can tell you is that this apartment, I had millions of orgasms here before I set foot in it. And what else? Becoming debt-free. That was just so cool. And what else? Holidays, yoga retreats, and some professional things. Perfect blood results. Recently, because I was in hospital about 5 months ago, so I was on a mission to kind of get perfect iron results after the doctors were telling me, you're anemic because you're vegan, and I was like, no, I'm not. So I managed to, obviously I did take iron as well, and I managed to get perfect blood results, but really focusing on the mindset as well as taking action, because taking action is very, very, very important. Okay, and I'm still working on some things now. In fact, every orgasm for me, I perform sex magic all the time. And I do have my own kind of ritual that's listening to affirmations and indulging in masturbation. And before I do, set an intention, and that intention becomes amplified just before orgasm. I use crystals as well sometimes, not to masturbate, but to put them on my chakras, especially choose a crystal that's associated with the thing that I want to manifest. And then on full moons and new moons, I have special rituals. I have more, yeah, I do kind of focus a bit. I do it as a more ritualistic ritual, if that makes any sense. So I kind of make my cacao. I write down what I want to manifest. I put my crystals outside in the moonlight. I put incense on. So it's a whole ritual, really. It's really nice. Yeah, but even if it's a placebo effect, it's still working. It's still kind of getting my head focused on a particular desire, and then the actions to make it happen just happen. Okay, what else can I say? What else is here? Okay, I think that is it for the questions. Okay, and then some other question I got on Instagram was someone asked me about life-changing books for sexuality. Well, I have a whole books playlist, and I'll leave a link to that in the comments below, in the description below, because I do have, for example, there I've got my top 5 books on female sexuality, the books I loved when I was growing up. So if you check out this video, you'll have lots of inspiration for life-changing books. And there was one more question as well. Let me see. Okay, I'm a single man who's been dating a bit recently. The problem is every time we get ready to have sex, they see how large my penis is, 9.5 inches, and they get nervous and bail out. Well, you know, last night I just saw, are you watching Sex Life, this incredible series on Netflix? And I just saw the shower scene. Anyone who's seen the series will know what I'm talking about. And I was absolutely, as we say where I'm from, gobsmacked. Oh my God. I've been with a guy like that once who was just like off the scale massive, and he was kind of a bit arrogant about it. And he used to say, "You won't feel a thing." Don't advise doing that. But I think that as this book, Becoming Clitorate, insinuates, the penis goes to the vagina, and the vagina is not the sexual organ, it's the clitoris. So I would make penetration less important in your sexual encounters and focus more on the clitoris, and that would be kind of by using your hands, using your fingers, and your tongue. Yeah, that's what I think. And have penetration as a kind of add-on, or maybe not so much time on it. And also there are some products called, I don't know what it's actually called, I'll have to look it up, but it's basically a product that it's like a kind of cock ring, but it's thicker, and you put it on the base of the penis, and that kind of stops you penetrating with the whole penis. And that's something that I would highly recommend. I can't remember the name of it now. Let me try and Google it very quickly. Okay, you can call it a stopper ring, male penis comfort. So if you look for stopper ring, male penis something, in Google, you will find it, and it's available on Amazon. Yeah, so it's like a big kind of rubber ring for the penis, but it's not as tight as a cock ring, because they're very tight, and sometimes they can kind of be a bit too tight for some people. Yeah, this is very soft, and it's very comfortable, but it just prevents everything going in. Because I know that when you're in the moment, you will have an instinct to thrust, and that can be a bit too much, and the woman's kind of a bit tense. So yeah, anyway, I hope this helps. And if anyone has any alternative tips to anything I've spoken about today, just leave a comment below, and it'll be very interesting to read them. And if you have any questions about sexuality, orgasm, sex toys, or anything else that I discuss here, don't hesitate to contact me at venus@venusohara.org or on Instagram @venusohara. Thanks for watching.